That's right. First time I met this guy.
May I have your attention, please? We have to get this guy on a plane back to Raleigh. So I would like to say a few kind words about this governor. I met the governor about 7 years ago. At the time I met Pat, we called him Mayor McCrory. I think he had just finished up with the term as mayor in Charlotte for 12 years. 14 years.
Who's counting?
Okay. When Pat went into the city down there, he had a city that was run down. It was not what it is today, which is probably one of the most modern cities in the coast. He is responsible for that. He had a railroad and he had a driving course down there that they run races on, I think. That was about it. I think Mr. Orville Coward introduced me to Pat and he said, this will be our next governor. So we started working on that, and needless to say, he did not win that a person with the name of Beverly, whatever name it was the winner.
He's still the governor.
And today, he is the governor. But let me tell you, we're so happy that Raleigh finally realized that there is life west of Asheville, North Carolina. Governor, I will tell you, at our county convention 3 years ago, Senator Jim Davis was our speaker. We had 60 people at our county convention. The next year, we had a gentleman, a congressman from South Carolina, by the name of Joe Wilson spoke, and we jumped it up to 102 people. This past year, Mark Meadows spoke, and we had 147 people. I do not want to put the pressure on the governor. In 6 months, we're going to have a county convention in Jackson County, and I am going to contact his scheduler and the governor. And I would love to have Governor Pat McCrory come and speak with us at the Jackson County Republican Convention in 2014. Pat has been married for 25 years.
In December. I got to make it to December.
He has
or
got,
she has to.
He has got 2 dogs. And hey, in 7 months, he has tried to build on what the Democrat Party took 140 years to take down. Senator Pat McCrory.
What?
You know what I want to do is, first of all, I'm here to have a conversation with you. I'm not here to give a speech. And then I've got business leaders in here. We've got Republicans, Democrats, and Independents in this room. And I want to welcome all of you. This is about governing, and this is about leading now. Leading our state. The election ended back in November. Now it's my job to lead. It's our job to lead. And part of that leadership, and part of the thing I promised you, is I would be out west. And I'll be out east, and I'll be in the Piedmont too. But I'm coming probably out west at least 2 times a month already since I've been here. And
Yes.
in fact, I was at a couple parades here, just Labor Day. That wore me out too. Y'all wore me out Labor Day. But I made a commitment to you that there was not going to be any part of the state that wouldn't be listened to and which we'd have dialogue on, because every part of the state is important. And I also recognize that a lot of parts of the state are going through some very, very difficult times. We're still going through a recession. And our job together is to get North Carolina out of this recession. and to help get our country out of this recession and to get people jobs. And 90% of my time while I've been in Raleigh and traveled the state has been focused on jobs. And that's where I'm going to continue to devote 90% of my time. And so what I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes talking to you, and then I want to hear from you too. I want to hear from you. And by the way, if you notice, this is not a private meeting. We've opened this up. I also promise to be a transparent governor. So whatever you say is being heard. Whatever I say is being heard. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Okay? This is for the people of Jackson County and Sylvan. I said it in 2008. This is one of my two favorite towns in North Carolina. Another one's Eden. I love Eden too. Sylvan and Eden are just so unique. I just love it. I want to walk down your Main Street again, but they didn't drive me down the Main Street. I love the Main Street here in Jackson County. I just want to let you know I just visited the Jackson paper plant and met with Tim, their CEO and owner of the company. The last time I met with him was in September, I think, of 2008. Remember 2008, September? That was right when the economy started to crash. And it's been tough ever since then. But we're getting some good news. We're starting to see, even at Jackson Paper Company, their business is coming back. But they had to make some very difficult decisions and make some tough business decisions to recover from that recession. And what we in government have to do is now make some very tough decisions. And I want to let you know, I kind of came in from the outside into the Raleigh culture. And in coming, in order to change things that have to be changed. And I'm going to continue to push, not for the sake of pushing or for ego or for power, but to change things so this economy recovers in the future. Because our neighbors in South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia have been changing things for the last 4 years while North Carolina stood still. I'm not going to stand still. I didn't get elected to move into a mansion or to gain the title of governor or to have access to the incredible Western residence, which we're addicted to. We love it. I got elected to make change, to turn this state around. And as a result, just during my first 9 months in office, I've got protesters. I've got even people in my own legislature, good friends. I've got people in the bureaucracy who wanted to keep the status quo. And I'm saying that is not satisfactory. And I'm proud to say we got about 80% of what we asked for, but we have a lot more to go. That's just 80% of what I wanted the first year. We have a lot more to do in year 2, 3, and 4. And let me tell you just briefly some of the things I'm very pleased with. I'd like to thank your senator for helping out so much. Let me tell you some of our major priorities, and then I want to hear from you. First priority was we had to change our tax system in North Carolina, which was over 60 years old. It wasn't competitive with South Carolina, Tennessee, or Virginia. And I'll tell you, it was quite a struggle. Just because we're all in the same party at times doesn't mean we all agree on everything. But we worked out major differences to reform our tax system. And it was some tough meetings, let me tell you. Some tough meetings, because we are at different spectrums in that meetings. But we came together at the end, and as a result, we've lowered the personal income tax and the corporate tax in North Carolina. So we're now competitive with South Carolina right near the border. And we think that's going to have a great long-term result on business in North Carolina. I'm tired of people moving to living even in the West for 5 months and then moving somewhere else for 6 months and 1 day to avoid our high income tax.
Yes, sir.
We've got to start changing that around. You know it right here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
People, it's one of the best kept secrets in North Carolina. I know this because I look at the registered voters. Now, see, people say they live here, but they actually don't live here. They only live here 5 months out of the year.
Yes.
I want people to live here 12 months out of the year and then go visit somewhere else 1 month. Does that make sense? I want them to buy cars right here, not somewhere else. So, major tax reform. And that's after 60 years of the same tax system. The second thing we did was this. We changed transportation. a whole transportation formula, which was in place since 1988, a thing called the equity formula. No one gave us a chance to ever change the equity formula because that's the way it's always been done, and by gosh, that's the way we're going to keep it. And I've always said, you know, whenever I drove down roads, wherever in North Carolina, I'd see it go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, back to 2 lanes, back to 8 lanes, and it never had any connectivity. And wherever the road was widest, the road was named after a former DOT rep or a politician. And that's when I knew the road was based upon politics, not based upon where we really needed the road.
But we've changed that some.
We're changing that.
We have already changed it to one side.
I'll tell you what, we changed the formula where we actually consider economic development, safety, and congestion as reasons where and how we build our road system. And we're going to get a lot more bang for our limited dollars that we have available as a result of this change. No one gave us a chance to change that system of design, which was made by Mark Bastine and Tony Rand and others. No one gave us a chance. We changed it. Bipartisan. Everyone says this is bipartisan. Almost all the Democrats voted for it, along with all the Republicans. I want to let everyone know that was a bipartisan vote. Total support. Now, I want to thank my secretary, Tony Taylor. He's doing a great job, and he spent a lot of times in the West, especially down in Catawba and Lincoln County, because we've had so many roads flooded during the past several months. That is major reform in only 8 months in office. Let me tell you the third thing we've done. We're working on education. The first bill we signed was vocational training. And I remember coming here in 2008 and telling y'all we're going to put more of an emphasis on vocational degrees. And now we have 2 types of pathway to success in our high school. One is going to be a vocational pathway to success, because people, including right down the street at Jackson Paper, said we've got to have 20, we got to get 20 and 30-year-olds who want to do this kind of work and have the skills to do this kind of work. And we're not graduating them right now. And if we continue to be a state that don't have people that can fix things and repair things and innovate things and rebuild things, we're not going to find the employees we need, and therefore the employer will go elsewhere. So we're making incremental change in that area. And I want to also let you know, despite what you read, especially out of Raleigh, this senator and myself, K through 12 spending is the largest this budget has ever been in North Carolina history. Did you know that? You probably did based on what you read. K through 12 spending is the largest budget in North Carolina history. The cuts occurred 3 and 4 years ago under my predecessor. So we are investing in education, but we've got a lot more work to do. And frankly, there were some things I didn't agree with. And I worked on that, and the Senate's going to work on that. We're at least having the master pay extended up until for June graduates of this coming year, which I think is the fair thing with some tough decisions. Let me tell you a couple more things that we're pushing against the good old boy network and girl network of the past. And that is this, is that if we're really going to look at how we organize government and streamline government and make it more efficient, we worked on streamlining the State Personnel Act. Most of y'all don't know, but in order for me as an executive to take any action toward unproductivity in state government, the average appeal process was over 400 days. Can you imagine running a business and you need to take any action toward an employee that might not be doing satisfactory work, and they can appeal for over 400 days? The company would come at a standstill. And that's what's happened in government. I want to reward the good employees and help improve the employees that aren't being productive, and frankly, we're going to have to deal with those employees that continue that unproductivity, the performance that's needed. We've set up a performance management system for the first time in state government to do this Personnel Act change. But we've got a lot more work to do. The appeal process now goes from 400 days to 200 days. It's still not satisfactory. So I'm making incremental steps, but we have a lot more to go. A lot more to go. I have political appointments for the past 2 and 3 administrations. Once you're in a political appointing job for over 10 years, I have to basically guarantee that person a job. And that's not the way government should be. I want to get the best talent possible for future jobs. And because it's your money. It's your money. So those are some examples, just a few of the examples in just 8 months of the change that we've made. And yeah, I'm getting hit from both the right and the left and those who want to protect the status quo in Raleigh. But again, I came to make change and positive change and for long-term solutions. And this is just the beginning. We're going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to work with my colleagues. I'm going to continue to work with you. And as I promised, you will see me often here. You will see me often. So, with that, why don't we have a little dialogue and then let's eat some good food. Mr. Orwell.
Go. I want you to talk just a moment about something that I think people don't generally understand. And that is that you took over, the legislature took over a state that was virtually bankrupt, and worse than that, government was in utter chaos. And if you listen to the protesters, that's mainly organized by the Democrat Party, they don't seem to understand the degree of chaos we were in. Could you talk about that just a moment?
Well, let me first say, I respect the ability to protest, but I disagree with the protesters who want to keep the status quo of how government's been operating in the state of North Carolina. I mean, we're the 3rd highest unemployment rate in the country. If you want to do the same things the same way, you're going to have the same results. And we've had to make some tough decisions to ensure in the long term we can compete with our neighboring states and the rest of the world for jobs. But you're right. When I got into office, and I'm so pleased. I have the best cabinet team in anywhere in the United States of America. I'm so pleased with them. And I would put them against any board of directors of any private sector company right now in the United States of America. Tony Tate in transportation, Aldona Boss in health and human services, public safety, Frank Perry. I mean, the list goes on and on. We've got some people who are committed to public service. Aldona Boss is working for $1 a year. And here she's just being attacked and attacked and attacked. It's just amazing. Making the commitment to public service. But what we have found out was that, frankly, there was no focus on operations or the execution of policies. With all due respect to my friends in Washington and my legislature in Raleigh, a lot of laws are often passed with a good concept, at times a bad concept. Obamacare is one of them, where it was a concept whether you agree or disagree is irrelevant. No one thought about how to implement it. And I'm going to be doing a major announcement on that next week, talking about what the impact is going to be on North Carolina and how employers and individuals are going to be impacted by that, and what we can do to help. But no one thought about the execution of the National Health Care Plan. And now we as governors have to figure that out. And the same thing is true with so many other policies, the execution of those policies, the operations. The business people that are in this room know that you spend 90% of your time on operations. We need to spend 90% of our time in Raleigh on operational issues, on how do we best serve the public, provide good customer service, and also get it done in the most efficient, effective way. And you don't read about that often in the media with the critics, but my cabinet meetings are all about operations. And that's the big breakdown right now. Huge breakdown. Our health care and health and human services, our costs are 30% higher than the average state. And the Medicaid program is going to bust this state wide open. I inherited a budget, with all due respect, it wasn't a balanced budget because some of the unfunded liability was hidden and transferred from one administration to the next. We're talking tens of millions of dollars over budget. in Medicaid. We didn't know this until we looked at the books. And since I've been in office, we've had $550 million of expenditures that were not budgeted by the previous administration in Medicaid. $535 to $50 million. That's in a $20 billion budget. That's a pretty big impact, isn't it? If we could have saved that money, and that would have been done correctly, we could have given every teacher a large raise. And I want to do that. But as long as this Medicaid debacle continues, and we don't reform Medicaid, fix Medicaid, the state's going to continue to have these problems. And during the next several months, you're going to see announcements. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring people in from the private sector, even on a contract basis, which I'm not ashamed of whatsoever. They're running an operation that's bigger than any university, any hospital, any school system. It's a $20 billion budget in health and human services. And I've got to invest in some people who can get the work done as opposed to investing in a lot of people who weren't getting the work done. And I want to find the talent to do that. And that's what you have to do in business, and that's what I'm doing as governor. And our payroll, by the way, costs are millions of dollars less than the Purdue administration already. So we're making some tough decisions. You'll hear about all this little pulling things out. What they don't look at the big picture. My goal is to reduce the costs. By doing that, you hire fewer people to do more work, and you pay them more. Sorry, that's the way it works. I got to do it. So with that, this is repeated throughout department after department after department. So we're working on it. Yes, sir.
I'm Bruce Governor from Waynesville. Last time we spoke, we talked about a lot of education issues.
Yeah.
This was before, I believe, you even filed the role. And I congratulate you on accomplishing a lot of the things you talked about. I know vocational one of your passions. And I think one of the opportunities in Western North Carolina, of course, is to bring industry and manufacturing back here. But until we get into the vocational education business in the digital age, we're not going to have the workforce that's going to attract industry or manufacturing. I think we've got some room to grow there. The other issue that we talked about and looking forward to see come about is a rapid expansion of digital learning. I think in rural areas, we have the resources through Khan Academy, which I suggested to you, to open small digital learning centers, possibly in partnerships with the state and some of our best teachers to work with smaller groups using the digital resources we have that are free, like college.
I remember our conversation.
Thanks for working with us.
Thank you. We, just to let you know, one of the things I'm most proud of in the budget is we actually took money out of some of the sweepstakes money for education. And the future, a lot of education, kids see this thing right here. This is changing the world, and we're going to have to adapt. And this will be able to get you connected with the best teachers and the best curriculum in the world. And all the academic institutions, public and private, are going to have to adapt to this. And I'm excited about that. We've got some community college reps in the room too. And good seeing y'all here. And one thing we're attempting to do with the community colleges is I want to reward those community colleges that are providing that technical training that is so desperately needed. Our formula for the community college has always been based upon the number of students, which you actually got hurt by this year in the money distribution. Is that correct?
Right.
Because the enrollment for community college after the 2008 recession went way up because of all the adults that need to go into community college. So the funding was increased. But then now that those adults have gone through their programs in the last 2 years, your enrollment dropped and therefore their funding. That's really where the funding got hit in education. you wouldn't know it, but I recognize that, Mr. President. But what we've attempted to do, we threw in some more money in the budget to reward those programs in which the front-end technical costs are so high, graduate fewer students, but 100% of the students get jobs. And that's what I'm going to be meeting with the community college. I want to graduate students in areas where commerce needs those skills. So that is part of our goal. I realize in the short term there was a hit here. I recognize that.
Compare these people that earn a living that they raise a family on, and the opportunities are out there, like technical and medical fields, it can be, it can qualify people in a 1 to 2 year program.
We agree.
To take advantage of those kind of opportunities.
Not only that field, but even welders right now. If you get a welding degree in North Carolina, you might be one of the wealthiest people in your county. And we need to find the 20 to 30-year-old welder because the 50 to 60-year-old welder is leaving the job market. And the list goes on like that in many occupations. Yes, sir.
Yes, Governor, I'm Clifford Meads. I'm chairman of the Jackson Tourism Development Authority.
Great.
And jobs and economic impact is very positively garnered throughout hospitality, tour, and travel. And I would be curious to hear how you are retooling North Carolina's Department of Tourism.
The question's about the Department of Tourism and how are we retooling that. It's actually going to be a major factor in our whole retooling of Commerce Department. In fact, Sharon Decker is in Asheville right now. I just found out, I didn't even know. She's from Rutherford. In fact, tomorrow we're going to be making an announcement of someone taking over the rural center, the rural apparatus of economic development for North Carolina. I got good news for you. That person's going to be from around this area. I'm not going to announce it yet. But I told you I was going to listen to y'all. We're going to get people involved in leadership from all parts of the state. All right? But travel and tourism will be a major bucket of our commerce reward. But what we had to do in commerce was this. This is another major change in state government. And we're pushing against the way it's always been. We had customers telling us that, you know, when we dealt with Virginia, we had a one-stop shop. Here we had to work through all these different organizations and no one knew what the other was doing. And it might have been the Western Court, the Economic Council, it might have been the Charlotte Regional Partnership, it might have been the Rural Center, it might have been the Tobacco Trust Fund. And the customer was confused. And so, but that's the way it's always been in North Carolina. And we had a lot of middle people making a lot of money too. And we need to streamline that. So we're kind of pushing against the way it's always been done. And so we're going to have major buckets under the Commerce Department. One is going to be travel and tourism, and that is so important for the West. And we want to incorporate what is our strategy, what is our connectivity with other industries, what is our transportation plan to make sure we have roads to get to the travel and tourism sites. One of the issues I've already heard today is our signs aren't good enough, directing people to a diverse amount of travel and tourism in this area. That's a simple solution. So we're going to work with you, a total bucket of travel and tourism under Sharon Decker, reporting directly to her. We're also going to have a bucket for rural. We're going to have a bucket for manufacturing. We're going to have a bucket for agriculture, which is still so important. I'm not giving up. Ag is so important to our state. And I pray for the farmers who are having some difficult times, especially Catawba, Lincoln, and other counties who they lost their crops this year. So I just want to let you know it's a major part of our economic development plan.
Public-private?
Huh?
Public-private?
It'll be a public-private situation, and we think there'll be much more rapid response because of that to our customers. So we're going to have the recruitment and marketing part private. We'll have any of the incentive and other areas of transparency public. And it'll be very transparent. But we've got to be more customer friendly in how we're dealing with things right now. Yes, sir.
You talked about the 200 days of appeal versus the 400 days, and you just mentioned the high level of middle management that perhaps isn't as productive as they could be. share with us the obstacles on cutting that even further and basically get rid of the dead wood?
Frankly, is we have almost a union type of workshop, union type of rules and regulations, which I think go against the high-performing employees of state government, which there are many. And I want to reward the high performers just like I want to reward the best teachers. But we have built these very strong union-type rules without a union, which make it very difficult for flexibility in managing government. Now, I've been criticized for changing it due to politics. I have no interest in it. For mid-level, low-level jobs, I'm not doing what my president. I don't care what political party affiliation you are to fill a pothole. It doesn't matter to me. By the way, I've got some Republicans mad at me for that. I want the best person who can do the job. And that's what we ought to be looking at. And I wanted to have a performance management system. And we're going to be implementing a performance management system statewide now, where we'll actually evaluate state employees and then reward them, hopefully based upon their evaluation, just like you have in the private sector. And we don't have one right now across state government. That's major change in 8 months, isn't it? So that's what unless you have a performance, I come from this, unless you have a performance management system, how can you even start rewarding or not rewarding employees that are doing a good job? You have to give them objectives to meet, performance standards, and things of this nature. And that helps the supervisors and the managers do their job. So I've got a person heading that up right now.
One tree, I'm never strong from Macon County, and I'm also on the board of directors of the North Carolina Association of Long-Term Care Facilities. Beverly produced under consent order with the Department of Justice. And she signed it, North Carolina may have defense to their claims. I thought maybe just because she was worried she couldn't speak at the Democrat convention and she didn't sign it fast enough. But you've got to implement it, and it's very important to further housing of people with mental illness, that your secretary be very sensitive and actually listen to providers. She doesn't have to always decide that way, but listening is important. And our leadership has an appointment with her next week.
Right.
Tell her to listen.
I spent 2 hours with Secretary Voss yesterday, and the 2 hours were spent on mental health and addiction. And it's the one issue in our country and our state that has been swept under the rug. I mean, it is, the mental health and addiction issue is, I don't care what, it's somewhere in your family right now. Some friend or relative or neighbor is dealing with mental health or addiction issues.
North Carolina had a very cheap place to house people. It was assisted living, but the feds wanted them to have an apartment.
We agree, and it was ability to adapt for the patient that was basically pushed out of some of these homes with very little warning. And I want to let you know that hopefully within the next, we're looking at a major proposal for streamline and give more one-stop service for the mental health and addiction issue, which would also reduce our costs because there wouldn't be duplicative care and people left out on the street. There are two major areas dealing with mental health and addiction right now. It's the county jail and the emergency room. And it's not providing the service they deserve, and it's bankrupting the taxpayer. So we have got to change the system. And again, I spent Aldona's, one of Major Aldona's boss's major tasks is to deal with the mental health addiction issue. I mentioned in my State of the State speech. And the other issue is we've got to reform Medicaid and fix Medicaid. We're going to have, our Medicaid budget was $530 million over the budget from what was projected by the last administration. And we cannot continue that.
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes, then we're going to eat.
Or 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Governor Hammond-Rower is one of the few residents from Highlands, North Carolina. So it'd be great to have some full-time residents join us. But I want to thank you and let you know how refreshing it is to have somebody in government actually run the government like a business. What a novel concept. Great job.
It doesn't come without scars.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good job. Great job. And we're glad to have Senator Jim Davis with the same ideas, too, about business up there running our government.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Governor, this is a follow-up question about our backbone industry in the West is tourism. We have a wonderful system of parks in the western part of the state, and there's a couple of issues that I think that you as a governor can do address that would help us tremendously. Specifically in this town right here in Dillsboro, we need some help with the railroad. 1988, Governor Martin and the Secretary of the Department of Transportation and the Department of Commerce got together and bought the railroad from here to Andrews from Southern Railway. I think that Mr. Tata and Ms. Decker need to rethink the possibility of a reacquisition of the railroad in Dillsboro to Rising City. That would help this town tremendously if your two department heads could get together and talk. And again, this has happened before in the Republican administration in 1988, and it can happen again. It's not something brand new, but it can be repeated. The second thing is, this would be for Secretary Scalvaro to address, and that is there's a possibility that the Mountains to Sea Trail is supposed to connect the coast to the mountains and go right through this town of Dillsboro and to Rising City. But the Secretary is not thinking about the trail in the same way that she's thinking about parks. Parks are easy to understand. You have an entrance, you have a boundary, so forth. But the trail, like the Mountain to Sea Trail, is different, but it needs to be thought of and just as important as all of our marvelous parks are in the rest of the state. There's some great stuff about that.
I will, as we talked before lunch, I will definitely get Tony and Sharon Decker up to talk about both issues, and John Scavala too. I wish I would have taken advantage of while Sharon was just down the street. But I will get my DOT people with you. We'll follow through on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I remember seeing the railroad line during my campaign. I think I had a luncheon right there on the railroad, if I recall. It was very impressive.
That's it. Let's get the lady in to take her order and perhaps...
I got fried chicken, just want to let you know.
Thank you all for coming today. And this is the Heartburgers, and there's Jim over there. I'm his daughter-in-law, married to Buzz. What I'm going to do is let you know what